Recording, there you go, okay. Good evening, everybody. It's Thursday, January 26th. We're having a workshop meeting tonight. I'd like to welcome you all on board. But before we start, just want to go over our COVID-19 bylaws. In accordance to the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting will be recorded and can be found on the Lunenburg Access Channel, YouTube, within 48 hours of the meeting. The town of Lunenburg, in response to the COVID-19, is currently following the guidance and the Lunenburg Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Public Works, and the CDC regarding the virus and the steps community can take to prevent the spread of the town facilities closed to the public and open by appointment only. In accordance to the governor's order suspension, certain provisions of the open meeting law and all public meetings are being conducted remotely. The following information will be provided for members of the public that would like to participate in the meeting. To participate remotely, use your computer. Please join the link as is outlined in the town manager's report. In accordance to the open meeting requirements, please be advised that this meeting of the Sewer Commission is conducted remotely and is being recorded and can be found on Lunenburg Access for 48 hours. And I missed a page. Town of Lunenburg, in response to COVID-19, is currently following the guidance of the Lunenburg Board of Health. And I already read that, so I'm sorry, but my printer double did this. And again, that's what I get for working in my new office. So anyways, in order in which can be posted on the town website on the COVID-19 information page, access through the town manager's webpage, allowing public bodies to meet entirely remotely or so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along and deliberate with the meetings. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. I'd like to ask for a roll call of all the members that are here tonight. Michael Devakis.
Here.
John Reynolds.
Here.
Carl Luck.
Here.
Rob Oliver.
Here.
Barbara Lavav.
Here.
Jane Rayleigh. And Brett and Jane, you're there, right? I can see you. You can hear us? Okay, so, and then after reading this, I realized why they don't want me to read for the kids on Channel 9, just so you know. So that's probably why. Okay. Before we start our workshop, and Brett's going to have to follow along, I'm just going to see if there's any announcements. Rob, do you guys have any announcements for us?
No.
No, I do not.
Okay, then we're going to get right into the workshop. As we talked about, just like to go over a couple of ground rules, what we're going to do. Your participation is very important. I know we're going to do things a little differently. So Carl, you're going to have to hold it for a little bit. When you have questions, we'll hit them as we go along. But what I want to do is go through each category and explain to some of the new members as well what we're doing versus what we have done. So Barbara, if you look at the first one, which is on your worksheet, it starts off with sewer enterprise fund. And that's going to be the user's charges. That's the first category. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So all what I really want to talk about tonight is I don't want to go back to 2017 because there's nothing we can do about it. I want to go through each category by name so you guys know where the money is coming and going, and then go over to the yellow number over on the far right-hand side. Do you guys see that on the form? And we can use 2021 budget, the actual numbers you can see in there, and Bob can explain each category. So instead of going all over the place, let's just do it one by one and we can talk about it. A couple of the features that we want to do as we go along is look at the capital purchase line item. We really want to talk about that tonight and utilize that for going into 2022 capital expenditures. So Bob, let's go with the first one, the user charges. Can you just explain real quick, what's the definition of a user charge?
Our, sorry, our quarterly bills. Also has our irrigation meters in there because they're considered under the same account for usage charges. So of that 21 2,150 is irrigation. So basically the quarterly billing is about 990,000. Hold on.
Now, here comes Brett.
Yep.
Brett, can you hear us? Not yet. Can you unmute, Brett? Bob, can you unmute Brett?
I can request to unmute him, but there we go.
There you go, Brett.
I've got it. It was just a matter of opening the right page. You know how it is. Sorry, folks.
Welcome to the meeting, and we just started, made it on time. We're working with the second sheet, Brett. You have the
Okay.
first budget with all the yellow on it. This
Yep.
one. Put that to the side for now.
Okay.
We're dealing with the other one. And this is the one that we're going to be presenting at town meeting and the finance people and blah, 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 blah. So we just
Okay.
started on line 1, which is the sewer enterprise fund. And line item 1 is 422000. It says use.
But we're not on this sheet at all. Either
No.
one.
No, the other one. You have the other one?
This one?
Yeah.
The one with the FY22 column all in yellow?
Was it in the package?
Oh, you know, well, no, the original one, then when Dave picked up the copies, I did not
Right.
have that summary. That's only in your email. Sorry.
Oh, well, I was about to bring that up.
Okay.
Go ahead, folks. I'll catch up.
Barb, Brett, you can still use that one because the lines match up to each one.
Right.
Okay.
So I mean, you don't have to, it's hard to read off the computer. You just
Okay.
got
So we're on.
this one.
We're on user charges.
Okay. Got it.
All right, so what I asked Barb to do is explain each item briefly and to see where the money's going and stuff. So right now, Barb, go ahead. So you're on
All
user.
right. So user charges are basically 990,000. The 1 million from FY21 had our rate increase in there ahead of the irrigation meters, but you know, 2 people that took a look at the budget said immediately, why are our revenues less? So that may be an item we want to look at. It was done as a projection just based on what we'd received for Q1 and Q2 and what we historically collect for Q3 and 4. So it's just a formula, it's just a projection. It
Good
can
question.
be increased,
It is a
whatever
good
you
question.
guys want to do.
Why would it be going down? It is a good question.
Excuse me.
Why would it be going down? Can you give us an example?
Well, I don't know. We don't know if we're going to meet the 1 million. We know we've received the 502,000 to date, and usually that figure is less. It's 94% less usually in the second half of the year. So it's a formula.
Okay.
We can just, if we want to just level fund it so it doesn't stand out like a sore thumb, I don't have any issues with that either.
Well, I'm looking at 2020 actuals and that was 871,000. Right.
Right.
I don't have a problem with the 992. Does anybody else want to talk on that? And I'm not going to go to each one. Just raise your hand so we can see it if you have a question. If not, we're going to move along.
And
I have a
yeah,
question.
don't do the raise hand if it becomes an issue. If I can't see it, because I'm not going to look at the screen, just
Yeah, no,
flag it.
I'll look at the screen, Bob. Go ahead,
Okay.
Brett.
My question is, where is the raise your hand icon? I don't have it on my screen. I've never had it.
I know, I don't have that either. I don't see it. Some,
Okay, well,
John, Barb, I think I learned that the other night. If you go, there's a reaction button, reactions down the bottom.
yeah,
You know, when you put your cursor down the bottom of the screen, you see the little icons. There's one's reactions.
clap and a thumbs up.
yeah, it's more like an emoji.
There's no raise hand.
If you bring up the participant screen
Yeah.
at the bottom,
Yeah.
there's a spot for raise hand.
Yeah, go
Mine
to,
doesn't have it.
Okay, I see.
Barb, did you look at the reactions, Barb? Because mine doesn't
Yes,
have
I
it
did.
either.
There's no raise hand. It's thumbs up. It's,
Yeah,
I think it's supposed to be like a waving hand.
that's where mine went. Yeah.
I think Rob,
Everybody's going to be different depending on what you're using, if you're on your phone
Yeah.
versus a computer or the app or online. So there's no one-stop solution.
Okay. No one solution.
They've had problems with it on other meetings, just so you know, so.
Yeah,
But if you have a question tonight, just go like that so we can see it. Okay,
the
Bob,
old fashioned way.
that's the way it should be. So let's
All
go.
right.
Brett, you got a question on this?
I don't. I accidentally hit that hand thing when you told me where to look for it.
John, did you have anything or are you just looking for the hand?
I was just looking for the hand, yeah.
All right. So connection charges, we'll just keep moving unless somebody,
Keep on going.
okay. Connection charges are lower again than FY '21. Again, based on our predictions, gaining again 2%, 1 new Fitchburg and 5 new Leominster. And only 3 bedrooms each. It's an estimate. It's a guesstimate is what it is.
Bob, before we go on, Rob and Bob, you guys looked at this budget with Heather, is that correct?
Yes, we have.
Okay, so again, Rob, especially you, if you want to make any changes along the way, today would be a good day to do it.
Yep.
All right, so I don't have any problem with the connection fees. Anybody else? Next one, Barb.
All right, penalties and interest is it's just a projection. Again, it's our demands, it's our interest paid. It seems to be going down. I think people are getting a little, I don't know, unbelievably with COVID, I think they're actually been better at paying bills. So we used to have a lot more in penalties and interest, and it seems to be.
Nothing else to do.
I know.
That's it. They can keep track of things. They're all home.
Barb,
So-
before you move on, I have.
Oh, and I skipped, I'm sorry. I
Okay,
skipped inflow infiltration. That is also based on connections, 3960. So that's just, the billing is done by bedroom count. And that's the INI sewer bank fee.
Okay.
And next was penalties and interest, 10.3. So it's just a level fund. Sewer permit fees are drain layers, and that's been fairly constant. Grease trap permit fees, that's a question whether we expect to waive it again or if we're going to keep it for the year for now.
I would like to look at that right now while we're on the line. There is another one opening up on Mass Ave, is that correct? Have they filed their paperwork, the pizza place?
It is not, I don't think it's happening. Right now, there's a hearing about a marijuana facility.
Yeah.
I have not heard any more about a restaurant there.
Okay, I heard the marijuana is going in the back and
Oh.
nail salon in the front, so. Okay, that's fine. As far as the grease traps, we did that last year to show the restaurant that gave them our support and blessings because of their sales, which were dropping. And I'll leave it up to the board, should we do it again this year or go back to our regular services? And I think we should vote on this, Bob, just so we know what we're doing. And we'll start with Mike. Mike, last year, I don't know if you're on a commission, but we waived all the.
I was.
how do you-
I agreed last year. I noticed today on the news that they increased capacities from 25 to 40%.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think we initiate the fees back into the system again.
Okay, John?
Yeah, I would agree. I think we should charge for this coming year.
Okay, Carl?
Yeah, I'm torn on it. I can go either way. What, Barb, remind me, do we have any direct costs related to this?
Direct, no, just administrative support, basically.
We were-
No cost at this time.
We do. One of the reasons is, I'm glad you're doing this, Dave, because it's educational as well. One of the reasons there's a fee is because we used to have the places that had external grease traps. Part of their inspection criteria was that they had to have them inspected, was it once a month or something, Barb? I forget the frequency. And they would have to pay to do that generally. We took that over because we wanted to make sure that control of that they really were getting inspected. But I don't know that we're actually inspecting them. if we do inspect them, which we should think about, and at one point we thought it was important, then there is an out-of-pocket cost associated with that. If we don't inspect them, then we don't have much out-of-pocket cost, and I don't see why we would need to, we could leave it for another year. So, Bob, can you refresh my memory? Are we doing any inspection on the external interceptors?
No, we have not in at least a year.
Yeah, let's go with that at the end, Carl. Right now, is it either yes or no to keep the fee?
Based on Barb's no, I would say that we don't need to keep the fees for this year.
Brett?
Well, they'd be kicking in June, correct?
July,
July, right. They should be back to capacity by then, I would think. So I'm a yes. To even higher capacity.
Yes. Thank you, Brett. And Rob, what's your opinion on this, coming from another town?
There aren't many towns that charge this kind of fee.
speak up, Rob.
You hardly hear. There you go.
Hang on. Better now?
Yep.
Okay. A lot of towns don't charge a fee. Once it's in, it's in. So it's really, more of a, how do you feel about the business owners in town? Are they struggling? And do you want to try and extend a little hand? So for me, it's more of a commission call. I have my own personal thoughts on it, which would be, if you can cut them a break until they get back on their feet, then why not? But that's completely up to you.
The only other concern I had before we make a final on this is that in Gardner, did your Board of Health go and do the inspections and grease traps, internal and external?
I'm pretty sure they do internal inspections. One of the things I was looking at was handling exterior grease traps because there was nothing in place. No pumping records were being submitted, nothing. So I think Lunenburg's already doing more, but could be doing more. And I think Carl's right. If we're doing inspections and, following through on compliance, then sure, the fee's justified. But I don't see any harm in extending one more, offering to the local businesses.
Okay, my concern would be if we have to go out and inspect the grease trap, who flips that cost? The owner or does the sewer commission? And like Carl said, that's why we put it in, because we were doing inspections once a month or Bob, I forgot what the schedule was, but you guys know more than I do. But that costs administrative time and it costs time for us to send people out to look at them. So and I agree with you, we should look at maybe deferring them for one more year, but to eliminate them, I just don't know who's going to handle it in the future.
Yeah, no, I'm not in favor of eliminating them.
Okay.
There's
Now,
also
let's
no corresponding expense for those inspections. So that's something else to consider.
Yeah, just to be clear, Mr. Chairman, I was not in favor of eliminating them. I'm just saying it. I don't think we've been incurring the cost. We haven't seen any problems, but maybe we have. But if we're not going to inspect the external interceptors, which is, I don't know how many now there are, about less than 10. If we're not going to inspect them, then we don't have an out-of-pocket cost. And they've been pretty good about doing their own internal inspections. I don't think we've incurred any cost due to that. And they've been pretty responsive without Barb spending a lot of time chasing them around like we used to. So we don't have a lot of incremental costs. I don't think our restaurants are going to recover, by June or July. Even when people can go back, a lot of us are still going to be not too anxious. So I think they could use a little break. So I would be in favor of one more year.
I'd like to go around the horn one more time. As a chair, my position would be to float it for one more year anyway. And it hasn't affected the budget bottom line. And we're talking 6 grand, so I just want to make sure that at our meeting on March, if we do this again, make sure we let everybody know that we forgave the grease traps back in 2020 and for 2021 to help our local businesses. But let's get that official. So Mike, I just want you to reconsider or think about it again. Have you changed your mind on anything or questions?
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense what you guys are saying. So yeah, I'll reconsider my vote and say we suspend them for 1 more year.
Now, again, if you feel strongly on it, please stay with it. So, I mean, this is just a business discussion we're having right now.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, we-
I mean, it's, you know, it's kind of a toss up. But if it's not affecting our bottom line and it's not affecting the business, then why not give the businesses in town a break this year and let them try to get back on their feet for 2022?
Well, it is affecting the bottom line. $6,000 budget in the budget is taken out to go somewhere else to keep that. It may not be going to a grease trap, but it goes to a business. So we are forgiving $6,000 off our budget, guys. So just keep that in the back of your head. But I understand what you just said, and I appreciate that. John, what do you think?
Given the fact that I didn't realize they said we're not doing them, I would have no problem with deferring this 1 more time.
Okay. Thank you, John. Brett?
Yeah, after further discussion, I say we go another year. I like Rob's thinking on the
Okay.
subject.
So what I'd like to do is looking for a motion to accept that we're going to defer grease traps for our fiscal year 2022, Bob, is that right?
I make a motion that we suspend the grease trap fees for 2022.
I second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? Mike, your mic is off. Mike, your mic is off.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Your mic was off, so I'm looking for a vote. Mike?
Yes, aye.
Carl?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Brett?
Aye.
And I for myself, Bob, so let's take it out.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Investment income, again, just an estimate. It seems to have been going down. We're only at 3,000 and we're 60% of the way through the year. So we target projected less.
So real quick, investment income, is that like going to the casino or what do you get for?
That's what the collectors or I guess the treasurer is doing with our enterprise fund monies while it sits in the bank.
So is that all, I guess they're not an aggressive fund, huh? Maybe by GameStop?
It had been doing very well and it just seemed to have slowed down this year.
Maybe we can take a look at that. But
And possibly they have not posted. A lot of times those kind of entries are done in a big batch. So I can check with Karen just to see how, or how close to up to date are we with what's in Munis.
okay. Anybody else have questions on that? Go ahead, Barb. Keep on going.
All right. Flow capacity. Now, this was based on stabilization fund. And I think what Karen had said, since we're planning to put in what we have collected in the prior year in on the next line down. Nope, res cap. Cap res.
All right. So-
There's, I believe. Yes, because our stabilization funds are not final. We don't do an entry here. We are doing a transfer for reserve capacity of the 20,965. And what we end up collecting for FY21, we will transfer over at special town meeting. So there's no entry for this one, for the flow capacity revenue.
Okay, so, no, so for a question I have is that on flow capacity revenue, you got 71,594.
That's because the that's reflecting that Highfield payment,
Okay. Now, what can we do in the budget?
which has been transferred out basically to its stabilization fund. It comes back in pieces.
Okay,
Barb, if you could, because that number is amazing to me. Can you explain why that's so big? Are we moving the money around somewhere, or it's 21, so maybe it's not that important, Mr. Chairman, but
well, no,
it's a-
but
it's a
68 of,
ridiculously large number.
Kyle, 68 of those from Highfield.
Those were our
Okay.
revenues with Highfield paying that. It's so high.
Oh, okay, so that's
And
where it's showing up.
Yeah, and it's
Okay,
also
it'll-
the
but it'll transfer right in.
okay,
Yeah, no, I understand.
okay. So
Thank
that's kept it,
Now, on something like that, Bob, when we do our presentation, you may want to put a note over on the far right-hand side saying 68 of it is from Highfield. Because that sticks out like a sore thumb.
right,
The Finance committee is going to say, what is that? So we have a note saying 68 of it is for Highfield. That explains a lot.
yeah, right, okay.
The same thing that we all did tonight. So I'm trying to anticipate what finance is
Yep.
going to want, what we're doing here tonight. So anybody else have any questions on that? Showing hands. Okay, go ahead, Barb.
All right, the next line is the 2965. And that comes out of that reserve capacity where that 68,000 went into from special town meeting. And that correlates exactly to the capital cost for Fitchburg down under the miscellaneous costs or expenses. So we're transferring in what we need from that 68,000 to pay Fitchburg next year, because that was the intent of that allocation payment.
I believe we voted on that, didn't we?
Right.
Yeah, we did. But it's got to be an easier way to put it in the budget though, so it's self-explanatory, isn't
So
it?
what do you mean, but, gentlemen, I don't remember, what did we vote on?
At town
Transfer.
meeting to
Just transfer
transfer.
to go to Fitchburg.
Oh, for this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, not for 22.
No, but the intent is that it would pay for, the intent of that allocation was to pay for the Fitchburg capacity costs.
Yeah, the concern I have here, and maybe a question first, Barb, so this 20,965 per minute with the 71,000 that's going in, what is the total available in that reserve fund?
Oh, I had it somewhere. It's 68. I have it here. I had it somewhere. Hold on, if you want. I will have to check with Karen. Will be based on my notes.
Again, we don't have to finalize this tonight, Bob, but we'd like to
Right,
make sure we're.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, Carl's asking for the balance and these are per my own notes. I have a balance of, well, after we transfer this 20,000 in, I have 47.2, but we also have collected reserve capacity amounts in FY21 that at special town meeting, we will be putting into back into the fund. So it's so currently with
47,
the
so it's
transfer,
60.
it'll be 47,000 and what we've collected this year.
So you say with, I mean, after the transfer. So it's about 67,000 now.
Right, it is the amount, because we keep transferring what we need. That last year was 7513, and that was taken up with the payment to Fitchburg. And that was what had been collected the prior year. So we just it keeps just churning.
Yeah,
Bob,
so my the thing,
Carl, hold on one second. Jane, if you can nod your head, could you write questions down and give them to Barbara as we go along. So this question, okay, instead of keeping the minutes, Bob, if we have Jane write the list of questions and you can answer the commission during the course of the week, so we save us some.
Yep.
You can go back.
Okay.
Okay, Carl, go ahead.
Yeah, so just from a, a business strategy point of view, so everybody knows. So we, as people connect, we collect a small amount of money for them for this capacity fund. And it goes into here and it's, I don't know, maybe probably not even $1,000. So they're not big numbers every year. And I guess you could, if you look at these numbers in the prior years, it was like maybe $7,500 a year. Or we're projecting it to be this year. And the payments to Fitchburg are the number you see over there, basically $21,000. So this, right now, thanks to the Highfield payoff, which is a one-time event, we've built up somewhere close to $70,000 in that fund. If we take out the total Fitchburg payment of $21,000 every year, then in roughly 3 years, there'll be only what you've collected every year. So it's kind of like we built up a reserve because that Highfield payment is really their payment for the 20-year period of the loan. It was
a question.
They basically paid ahead. It's not so much a question as just I raised the concern that we should at least be aware of when we make this decision, that if we take out from that reserve account the full amount due every year, in about 3 years, there'll be nothing there. And the budget will look like all of a sudden there's $20,000 more to be spent. So I just want to make everybody aware of that we're eating down that very quickly. We'll pay for the future.
We also have the choice that we could give all the Fitchburg now too. We could do that as well. It's money coming in one side out the other. So it has really, it's not our money, it's Fitchburg's money, basically.
Right. But I think Carl's just saying after 3 years, when it's spent, we will need 20,000 or 21,000 more in our budget. So
Exactly.
But
the budget will grow by 21,000 then, and it's fine. I'm not advocating either way. I just want to make sure we do this with our eyes open. Because early on, we had talked about taking a certain percentage of that revenue of that bank account every year, and so it was helping the annual budget every year. We can spend it all up front, and then deal with the $20,000 shortfall in 3 years or 4 years from now.
anybody else have any questions? Okay.
No, it's a good thing for Carl to point out, just so that if everyone sitting here is on the sewer commission in 3 years from now, we'll know where that money went.
Well, yeah. But again, a little note to the side would be fine too, but
Right.
I just think it's really, I might be wrong, kind of complicated the way the books are being done. That's got to be an easier way, money in, money out. But Bob, I know what you're doing, but for this year we'll do it, but we are trying to simplify this as well as we go along. But that's basically the sewer enterprise fund. Bob, what else do you have there?
The last one is the capital reserve transfer. Again, that has an offsetting expense. That's the money that we do the 3% of our revenues every year that we're accumulating. And I have 20,000 to be transferred from that fund, and then 20,000 under purchase of service to spend for capital expense.
Okay.
And not sure, this time Rob had his 2 cents. I don't know if you want to kick in.
My only comment on this one is, and we'll discuss it further down, because the question isn't how much money comes out of capital, it's what are we going to use it for, and do we need it? I mean, we've got over $2 million worth of capital equipment out there, and we've been trying to build up a reserve to protect against, big expenses, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 pump station issues. So we just want to make sure we use it as capital, so.
Select, we're gonna talk about that in the future, but in a few. Stick to the script. Go ahead, Rob.
I guess my thoughts on capital, $20,000 can get eaten up very quickly. I would be, just so we're not faced with trying to find funds, transfer funds at town meeting or special town meeting, I'd like to carry a little bit more in that account. I mean, just today, we decided we needed a pump, and it's gonna run us in the $17,000 to $18,000 range after we pay for freight. So that's, I mean, we can chew that up super quick. So if we have 2 or 3 pumps that we need to replace, that's gone. And then we're scrambling, trying to find money if we have another emergency. So that's my thoughts on it. I'd like to carry a little bit more. I was thinking more in the $50,000 range. But I'll just throw that out for discussion.
What we'll do, Rob, is when we get to the capital expenditures, and I agree, I think you and I talked about that. I like to really bump that up capital even more and leave it in the capital expenditures. But when we get to that line item, we can talk about it a little bit more. But for this commission to know how this works, that 20 grand is coming out, going back into the capital expenditures line, which is in the back of the sheet that you have. So does anybody, especially new members, have any questions on that part of the budget? So basically, that's all the money coming in and what we got. Next category will be.
Mr. Chairman, there's one item that we didn't mention specifically, the irrigation meter fee. Where does that come in, Barb?
That is included with the user charges.
With the user
There's
charges?
two- With the
Okay.
top line, the user charges got an asterisk on it, and there's
Okay.
2,150 added to that amount.
Again, Carl,
2150.
please listen to Barbara as we go along tonight, because this is going to be different. And you don't have the worksheet. So when you have questions like that, Bob explained it as the first one. So listen up. Go ahead, Barb.
Well, I didn't hear the 2150
Go ahead, Barb.
irrigation fee.
Anyway, that's revenue. So without the 6,000, it's down to 1,065,000, basically. So, moving on to the payroll section.
Yep.
Okay, those figures are pretty much established from Karen and the salary admin plan. I don't have any input in that or Rob at this point. I mean, I'm sure we could if we want to change it, but those figures are per Karen. The only one that it does stand out is the proposed part-time position of 19,760 that we were talking about putting through.
So let's stop there, Barb. If you look at the first line item, and that's our portions of paying everybody on our payroll, including Rob. But we all talked about getting a part-timer coming in. Hopefully we can get it ready for a town meeting. But after talking with Rob and Barb and Heather, Rob, and Barb, you're recommending a 19-hour person, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, at $20 an hour.
Yeah, and that may be high, but that's, Personnel Committee has to come to a resolution on that if it moves forward.
So I think what we ought to do is to start with step one. Let's get this discussion out of the way. I'm in favor of hiring a part-timer for our business for a couple of reasons, as we talked about in the past. I think to make it official, I'd like to do an official vote that we approve a part-timer. Now, keep in mind, this part-timer would be a 19-hour-a-week person with no bennies. Is that right, Rob?
Yeah, that's what we're planning on.
Now, if this person works out good, which I'm sure these guys will do the interview process correctly, this person we can develop and then develop and hopefully give her the position of the full-time manager when Bob retires. But that's something that when you develop somebody, you want to bring them along slowly. So the first year could be just to see how this person's doing the job. And then Rob and Bob would evaluate, they can either go up or down. Am I saying that right, Rob?
Yeah, I guess what we talked about in Heather and I and Barb talked about this a little bit yesterday was if you start this person as a 19-hour a week without benefits, if they work out and they're great and they seem like they're the person for the job, you can always pursue then bumping it up to 20 hours with benefits to make that person, want to stay a little bit more for the time that Barb has before she retires. So that was kind of my thought on it, was to start at that point. But you could push to start this person with, part-time with benefits if you so choose.
Keep in mind, if we did that, you gotta add probably about another $28,000 to that line. So my recommendation would be to vote for the part-timer and then come back after and see how the interview process goes. But I mean, they would like to stick with the 19-hour a week person. So I'd like to have a vote on that. So I'm looking for a motion that this board backs this decision and goes out and do the request for a new backup person.
I'll make a motion for a 19-hour, $20 an hour person, weekly salary with no benefits, until we see how they perform, sort of a trial basis year for them.
Okay, one thing I gotta make, and I'm sorry, I should have said it. We're saying 19 as business people. There's gonna be a survey done probably from the assistant town manager, come back with exactly what the rates are going for. We feel it's 20, could be 18, could be 22, but it's gonna be in that range. So I just wanna make it clear that if you say 20 hours or $20, it may not be correct. Could be less, could be more. But
We'll say up to $20 an hour for 19-hour weeks,
yeah, I would say a 19-hour
no benefits.
person to be determined by, see, they fit into a scale. Into a program. So this is a new position, so we got to figure out what step they fall in. So before we approve it, this will obviously come back to this board for approval of what the step would be. But we just don't know yet, and that would have to be done. So I would recommend everything you just said, Brett, but leave the $20 hour and leave it up to the personnel committee to determine what the price is. They'll go out and they'll come back to you and say, this is what that person is being charged today around towns. You know what I'm saying?
Very good.
So
And it will have to pass at town meeting also.
it's got to pass the town meeting, but before it passes the town meeting, we have to approve it. So whatever it is, it'll be fair for what's going on in the marketplace. It's just that this position hasn't been researched yet, so we don't know what the marketplace is holding for.
Do you need me to repeat the motion, or are we good with that?
Good, I'll just take out the $20 hour until we know what the rate is going to be. So if you
Okay,
want
then we'll,
to amend to that,
the motion includes a position up to $20 an hour, or whatever the rate ends up being, at 19 hours a week with no benefits.
$20 an hour or whatever, I accept that. Is there a second on that?
I second it.
Let's open up the discussion. Any discussion on it? John,
No, I'm all set.
Carl?
Yeah, I'm not against a part-time person, but I don't really support the idea that this would be a person that would backfill for Barb, that would become a business manager. Business manager is a very high-skilled, high-level job. I don't imagine that we're going to get a person that we need for business manager into this position. So I don't think it's a good step in a replacement strategy.
Okay, then let's go on. Let's take a vote on it. Anybody else? I'm looking for a vote. Start off with Mike.
I agree to it, so I say aye.
Okay, John,
I agree, yes.
Brett,
Aye.
Carl,
No,
and I for myself. Okay, the next one, Barb. You
All
got
right.
salary, clerical, and again, I think these are all self-explanatory.
Right, like I said, they come from the accounting office. It's not, I just plug in their numbers. Based
So-
on, it's based on contracts or salary admin plan. Jane's line is 2886, and that's based on an increase that is scheduled on the salary admin plan, and based on 12.5 hours a month. So,
Anybody else have any questions on the salary category? I see none. Let's move on.
all right,
Purchases of services, Bob.
right. First one is the 64,425 for the infrastructure. This includes, basically all asset improvements, repairs. It's manholes, it is pump station equipment, it's capital expenses within the pump stations or whichever. But it's all the different subcategories that have been talked about. General repairs, capital, sewer lines, jetting and cammering, manhole repairs, sewer stub installation when someone's paid a betterment and we do not have a stub in place. Police details for all any repairs that are done. The meter pits, the irrigation meter software, office, and DPW expenses that may come up. That it's a catch-all. It's also our emergency, usually it's the emergency fund.
Rob, do you want to make any comments on this before we talk about?
Again, this is basically where I think we need to include more in that capital part of this, where we had $20,000 reserved. I think that's where I was saying, I think 50 is probably a better number. Maybe not even all of it, although historically it looks like that would cover most emergency capital expenses. And then, there's other things in here that, we talked about manholes, or do we have a separate line for that, Barb?
No, this is the
That's all-
manhole. Well, it
it's
depends
all
on which manhole, if it's I&I remediation or not.
So there's things in here we already have planned, repairing manhole structures just for, structural issues where, they're sticking up above the road grade and we're hitting them with plows, or they're settling and, they're a major nuisance to traffic where people are hitting them, they hit them with their car. And then there's items that I'd like to start pursuing out of the last I&I report that was done that identified. There were the Wright Pierce manhole inspections that were done, that I know Jack had started to do some work on those for I&I. There's a long list of them that were identified. There were some other areas that were identified for particular manholes that could be done. So, I'd like to start hitting some of those and come up with a solid plan, which I don't have at the moment. But, we're trying to figure out where my predecessor left off on some of that. And then in the future, identifying more and more as we go forward to try and fund more out of, this particular line. But I think including more, at least on the capital improvements or emergency capital repairs, would be prudent.
So let's open it up to questions. Mike, do you have any questions? And
No.
Mike,
I agree with increasing, like we were talking about, like Rob was saying, with increasing the budget. Because you never know when there could be emergencies arise, and the price of everything is just exponentially increasing because of this COVID. So I think we do need to increase everything.
John?
Our system is beginning to get a little older. And I'd like to see more money in there. I'm just not quite sure where we're gonna move it around from. But
Right.
yes, I think somehow we need to try to increase that.
We're going to talk about that when we go to the back page, the capital expenditure line. We're going to get the money. We definitely have the money. Carl?
Yeah, maybe just so I don't waste time, Dave, you said we're going to talk about the capital later, or
When it
What
comes
do you
up to
understand?
that. when it comes up on the back page.
the back. So is there a page, I don't know where the page that has capital, is there a capital list somewhere or something?
Dave, I would think this may be the section because this is where Rob would have his recommendations on capital expense.
All right, so right now, if we go back to the capital expenditures that you have on the other page, you're at 30,000 and 20,000, 2965 on the back. What I like to do, guys, is and with Rob and Bob here, is pull 100 grand out of our retained earnings and put it into our capital expenditures and leave it there. That's what I would like to do. You got $2.1 million sitting there. And again, we talked about this line item before, that so if to do it right, we have to fund it. And the way to fund it is $100 and move it around. And that would be my recommendation. And Rob, what would yours be, just the top of your head?
I mean, obviously, from my standpoint, the more that's available, the more freedom we have to do, do some of these recommendations that I've been getting into. And some of them on the I&I save money. So I think they're the ones we want to hit first. And then, talking to Barb today, you have a report on your sewer pump stations that were evaluated back in 2012. I think the report came out. Now we're almost 10 years later, going on 20 years for some of these pump stations. I think we need to do that evaluation again. So I think that's going to identify a lot of cost that we're going to need funds for, to either rehab these stations, refurbish some of the equipment, replace some of the equipment. So I think if you can, I hate to take money out of retained earnings, but I think at 2.1 million, if you're only talking that 0.1, making 100,000 available, you're going to start to see some savings in what's being paid to Leominster and Fitchburg on the I&I side. So eventually, I don't have an analysis in front of me. I haven't gotten to that level. But eventually, it has a fairly short return on investment, I think, on some of these things we should do.
Well, I think as a business, and that's the way I like to look at this, is you have to spend a little money to make things work. Now, this year during the COVID, if you notice, we really watched the budget. We didn't have that 35-40% increase that was talked about back in last February. That's why we wanted to raise it 10% and see where the numbers came out. Looking at that, I'm very happy with what we have so far, including the rates from Leominster. Now, that doesn't mean that Leominster goes away. I still want to sit down and talk to the mayor and his assistant. But I think we ought to start looking for alternative ways to fix the I&I in the Whalum area, either through grants or association with Leominster. And that's something I'm looking to do during, if I'm still here after May, what we want to do. As far as running the business, like John said, we got some things that are old, and we spent a lot of money on the maintenance plan for this company, and I want to start funding that. It's good, and it's not going to be put in a drawer. It's going to have to be used somewhere along the way. The only way we do that is put money at it. And I don't want to raise any more rates for our customers. I want to use what we have wisely, which we'll talk about as we go along. But that would be my recommendation. Maybe 100 isn't enough, Rob. Maybe we should just say put 150 in there and do it right. But I don't, and I'm going to say this again, don't want to spend a dime on an engineer to tell us that we have an I&I problem. I think with you here and with Bob and the issue that we have, we can work this out for ourselves. But I'm looking to save money on outsourcing and using our own judgment what we need. And Rod, if you came to us and said, I need an engineer for something, by all means, we'll get it. But we want to give our customers the best service at the best possible price. And I think today's the day we start. And by doing a new budget and making a commitment to our customers, I think we're on our way. So with that, let's open it up. And again, Mike, I'm sorry for you being first on the list, but
No, it's okay. Kind of reaching, not to make this too long, but reaching back into some of my experiences of, working with maintenance and my background, whatever. I agree with what Rob's saying. You know, if the infrastructure is old, you know, we can put some money in the budget. Let's upgrade things, less chances of breakdown, easier chances of maintaining things. You know, we get return on investments at the same time as well. So if we're buying new pumps, you know, how much less maintenance are we going to do to, you know, maintain what we have? How long is it going to take to get that money back? So I'm agreeing with exactly what Rob is saying and what you're saying too, Dave.
Ron?
Yeah, I think starting out with 100,000 for this year works. I mean, for all the reasons that Rob talked about, then obviously we'll have to see how it goes and reevaluate it next year.
Carl?
I'll be right back.
There's no question, I'm more familiar through the years and time spent on these reports of the problems our system has. And I'm sure when Rob gets a little time breather here and looks at some of the more recent reports, we've already spent enough money on engineering, and I could do, Dave, to tell us more than we want to know about what needs to be done very specifically. We know, they did, Rob, you haven't had a chance to look at it, but we got from, getting confused, Wright Pierce report, I think, had a lot of detail on the pump station, very specific controllers that are out of date. We know that some of the pump stations, the two pumps are not behaving the same, so there's issues there. So I think, and as you say, we have a long list of manhole work that needs to be done. We have specific I&I issue in Whalum on Elizabeth Ave, a street that we know is costing us thousands of dollars in I&I. We paid the engineering for that. We know where it is. So I think we have a longer list of things that we already know need to be done than even 100,000. So I do think it's time to invest. But I think we need to identify what's specifically going to get done with that. My only concern, and it's really more than maybe a tracking and accounting issue, is what we're calling capital, and what we're calling, and what's, means an upgrade, so that we can track it too. And a question for you, Rob, from your experience, what would you consider criteria for capital versus, emergency repair, small things? So do you have any guidance from prior jobs, dollar value or lifetime or whatever that you would consider a capital item?
Yeah. So for me, a capital item is something, obviously you have emergency repairs. I don't necessarily think those are a capital improvement. Capital improvement is
Right.
something that's planned. You mentioned replacing VFDs in some of the pump stations. You could, make a program to do that as a capital improvement. And typically what we did, and of course we worked with an outside vendor on our treatment plant, and basically we had a maintenance account that we spent if a pump needed to be rebuilt, bearings replaced, they did it under that account. If it was over $5,000 and they wanted to fix something, we called it capital. So that's just arbitrary, kind of a random number, but we thought it was a good point at which to say, well, if it's more than $5,000, we really want to know what you're doing. And so we had more control over it that way. I mean, we could look at it, something similar to that, where, if MP is out and they need to make repair at a pump station and it's, a $2,000 thing, I wouldn't consider that capital. Looking down the road and saying, we're going to replace, pumps X, Y, and Z on any given years, that's capital. That's something that's planned and then executed.
The other thing that's capital in businesses would be, like in my business, you have capital expenses for hard items. So for the pump, you need a new pump, that's a capital expenditure. If you're going to be doing a project like our maintenance plan, he needs a budget, that's a capital expenditure. So we're giving him a capital plan to pay for that maintenance plan, and that's going to be called capital. So there's two different variations in business. Rob's looking at it as far as the maintenance plan. Rob, let me know, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but to make a plan, you got to put capital behind it, and that's what we're doing. So that's a quick definition of it.
Yep, that's a good way to
Yeah,
put it, Dave.
Yeah, and that's where I differentiate, because we've set up a capital fund. And I'm not against pulling more capital, because I say I've seen a list, and things as Rob had described certainly fit capital. And we have a lot of maintenance to do, jetting the lines, inspecting, getting on a regular inspection program, those are maintenance things. So I think it would make better sense and be easier trackable to have the two separate. So if we take money from capital that get put someplace, and we have a line item, that Rob uses for capital, and that we put a look at that 100,000 or whatever you guys are thinking into, general equipment repair, maintenance plan, so that we can, keep the two, fairly distinct things, clear. I mean, otherwise if we're just going to call everything the same, then we should stop setting aside capital and not kid ourselves and put this thing into capital and then just pull it out and use it for maintenance.
I think you're really don't understand what we're trying to say. The capital expenditure is the fund a plan. So if your maintenance plan, for example, is going to go into effect, it needs money. Now, when you have a business, and for the last, I don't know how many years, you're always trying to keep the company from going into a deeper expense. So now, over a period of years, through raises and cost-effective way by outsourcing, we now have a reserve to pay for some of these capital expenditures. And all that the capital expenditure is going to do is get you money back. So if Rob does his plan right, you'll see more money in the return at the bottom line. May not be this year, maybe over a period of 5 years, but we have the funds to start fixing our business. And that's what it is. So to get into the nuts and bolts, Kyle, we don't have time tonight, but I know what you're saying. But understand capital expenditure is
I'm just saying, it's semantic, Dave. When we call it capital, you in your business sort of treat everything as capital. In my business, I treated things different. It doesn't matter. It's how Rob wants to run the business, I think. And
we don't.
And we should put the right amount of money in the right places.
Yeah, you're not doing that. But anyways, go ahead, Bob. You got a question?
I just wanted to 2 cents. In the past, in the way I've budgeted before, it's expenses usually over 5,000 that I've put in the capital column. And then the other thing is just our current balance from our transfers at town meeting of the capital reserve is just 95,000. So we'll add to that that's the line Dave was talking about at the bottom of this, the 3% of revenue. We'll add to it, but then whatever we decide to take out and transfer over for use during FY22 would reduce it. But currently it's 95.
Okay, so the question that we have now is, Brett, do you have any questions about capital expenditure?
I do not.
Okay. So the question that we have now is, what do we all feel comfortable with giving Rob to execute the plan to use the capital expenditures in? And Rob, we're going to take your recommendation.
Well, yeah, I mean, Dave, if you're comfortable with 100,000, I mean, that certainly allows me to do as much as I can. I don't want to handcuff myself. So yeah, I think that's a good number to start with. If next year we decide that wasn't enough, or we put too much in, we have to figure out maybe better ways to use it. But I think that's a good starting point.
I think if we put 100 in, my thinking is, give you 100,000, put it in the line item. If something really bad happens, you have the money. We don't have to go back and ask the town to borrow money. So I think this will serve two purposes: give us that security that you need to do your job effectively. And so I would recommend 100,000 too. Real quick, let's go around the horn. You agree on the price, Mike?
Yes, I do.
John?
Yes.
Carl? Carl?
Just a detailed question. Where are you suggesting the 100,000 comes from?
Retained earnings.
Retained earnings. Okay.
Brett? You gotta hit mute, Brett. Brett, can you unmute yourself?
Sorry, I had no idea I got muted again. I agree with the 100. Thank you.
Okay.
100,000.
So I'm looking for a motion to pull $100 out of retain, 100,000 out of retained earnings and put it into our capital expense.
So motion.
Second,
I'll second.
any discussion?
Just clarification, so are we adding to the capital line, which in Barb's detail is 1D, $100,000 to the sheet as she now has it?
So I would say yes. Is that right, Bob? Is that where we're gonna put it?
It would be, but I think Carl's asking, so is it $120,000 that we're putting in as far as revenues?
I will go with the 120,000. You have 20, but I would increase that to another.
It's not revenue, it's expense,
Well,
purchase.
okay,
Purchase
and I'm
service.
also talking about the revenue, where if we're getting 100,000, that's gonna bump our revenues.
No, it won't. No, because it's coming out of retained earnings, Barb.
It's a transfer. In order to spend
From
it, you
retained
gotta
earnings.
have it
It'll-
here. It's gonna be,
Yeah,
it's a
Yeah,
transfer.
so
It'd be a transfer out of one account to the other, so it's gonna show our operating budget $100,000 more. It's gonna show our retained earnings $100,000 less. Everything else stays the same.
yeah, so normally what, but correct me if I'm wrong, Barb, normally in this case, it would essentially look like, it doesn't change the revenue stream up above, but it shows up as negative on the bottom line, and then we have a retained earnings transfer, right, at town meeting.
Okay, yep, yes, it can go,
There is no
Yep.
revenue line for transferring from retained earnings.
well, even the 20,000 that appears on the revenue line is actually the way it works at town meeting, comes from retained earnings and it's replaced, so it's.
Yes, but it's a specific fund.
So Carol, you,
Okay, so in
We're-
addition,
and
so
we're
the
not talking about that
20,000 will
specific
remain
fund.
100,000 from retained earnings.
Carol, you, yes? or no?
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to
Okay.
clear with Barb what this looks like, because I think it just looks like the bottom line gets 100,000 worse, which means we need 100,000 transferred from retained earnings.
Brett? You're muted again.
Down the bottom where it says total retained earnings appropriation,
Okay.
there'll be a number down there.
Waiting for Brett.
So I think the only change in the sheet, is to change 20
We
on
got it.
the
We know.
capital line item to 120.
We know. Brett, what's your vote? You're on mute, Brett. You there, Brett? You gotta hit your mute button, Brett.
Sorry, I apologize. That's been happening automatically on me. Sorry. Again, I agree to add the additional 100,000 from the reserve fund to whatever number it ends up being.
So the expense lines, I'm sorry. The expense lines under infrastructure and I are those, or engineering services for the pump station evaluation, are those expense lines now increased
No,
for the capital expense?
you should have a capital expenditure for a business. We talked about that before. Talk to Karen tomorrow. Tell her that we need a line item for capital expenditure, period. No Pittsburgh, no line, it's just for special projects. So it's capital line, and she may end up adding that line.
Okay.
Okay.
Right now, we have it as a subcategory for infrastructure because it is an increase, but you want to create a new account?
You know what, whatever easier on you and Karen. I would probably not, maybe not a new account, but if you got an infrastructure, then it goes to infrastructure.
Okay, that's what I want to know. So the 100,000 would be reflected in there.
Exactly. Did we
Okay.
vote on, or did we ask for questions? I forget. So we have a motion. Did we vote on that? Mike, did you vote on it?
No,
I think we did.
Yeah, I thought we did.
No,
Jane,
we didn't vote, Dave. I don't
no, the motion was
know if
made.
it was a second even.
it was,
It was seconded by Mike.
okay.
Okay,
All in favor of that? Mike,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Carl.
Aye.
Can't read lips, Carl. What'd you say?
Aye.
Take that as an aye. Brett?
Aye.
An aye for myself. Rob, you got the 100 grand, so have some fun with it. Okay, keep on going on purchases of infrastructure, Bob.
Okay,
By the way, Bob, before you start, I'm trying to get this out of here because I know people got to go at 6:30, so.
yeah, I'm one of those. Okay. So are we done with purchase of service, or you want to go through I&I and or outsourcing?
The only thing that I don't have anything else on, except for engineering services. Anybody feel, Rob, how do you feel about the engineering services?
Um,
Why did
Yeah,
it go back up?
uh, well, I mean, the plan is to try and not use engineering services, at least this year. I know we have a lot to do based on previous recommendations. I'm not saying that we won't need an engineer to maybe carry out some of these, to be a little bit more detailed. So I think we're okay where we are for now. I know Barb went back and looked at the pump station evaluation that had been done. What we say, Barb, that was $9,000
Right,
or around that.
Yep.
So, even if we decided to update that with the same consultant, I'm assuming it's going to be, around the same to bring it up to current standards or less, hopefully, if they have that base to work with. So I think there's money in there to use should we need it.
So we'll leave it at 16?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Just to be clear, that really only allows 6,000 for real engineering services, because 10,000 is the flow metering contract.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
but here's where it could be a capital expense, because it'll be greater than the 5,000. So that capital, the 100,000 can, I think, in my opinion, can be moved within this purchase of service category if it's to help the value of the assets.
Well, it's part of regular maintenance too, isn't it? So it shouldn't be used for a capital expenditure. We should budget it as a line item, not out of capital expenditure. It's a service, so
Yeah, I agree,
And-
Mr. Chair.
that's where you got to look at capital expenditures, not the catch-all. It's a purpose for it. But if we have to increase our infrastructure purchases, we probably might go there. You know what I mean? But right now it's in engineering, right?
Right.
So
Well, we
it's
have
in-
6,000.
6,000, yeah.
I guess I wouldn't mind seeing that bumped up to 10, just to allow a little bit more flexibility.
Are we talking about the same line item, engineering services?
Right, and the subcategory of 6 is it's broken up between 6,000 to consulting and the 10,000 to flow metering at this time.
Oh, I see.
Okay,
So Rob's talking about increasing that 6,000 up to 10, which increases the engineering services up by 4,000. So it would be at 20,000.
okay, then I don't have a problem with that. Anybody have a problem with that?
I don't.
Make that so? So again, you're gonna send us a new revised budget, Bob, sometime before Tuesday?
Yes.
And it's going pretty good, so we're almost done here. Utility sewer enterprise, kind of basic. The only question that I would have would be the electrical charges. And I know, Bob, if you can explain to the commission, we're going on next amp soon.
Right, we have started getting the solar credit billing and credits on the Unitil. It remains to be seen what credits would add up. And that's why we kind of level funded it for this year. We're assuming, electric would go up, but then we should have some offsetting credits, but we don't know really until we see a full year of what goes on. So it's just level funded at 29,750.
Keep in mind, she's at 29.7, and our highest was 35 back in 2019. So I hope that holds. I hope that holds. But anyways, we're okay with that. Anybody have any questions on utilities? Show of hands.
I notice in the actuals to date, it's like half, it's like 11,000. Let's call it 12. Do you think that's reflect half year, or do you think that's understated for half year?
Sure have
I
those-
think that would have my, I don't think it has my January bill, so it would be exactly
Ah.
half.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, any questions on that? Let's move on.
29 should be good.
Although it does have 2 months of credits for Unitil without offsetting bills for Nexamp, because that was just processed a couple days ago. So give or take some.
Like I said, we gotta sit down and look at those bills after. I had, units, I'll look at my bills at my house. I think I was talking to you guys about it the other day, and, yeah, no, it was no mistake. So, yeah, we gotta keep an eye on that. Go ahead, Bob, you're up on the sewer enterprise fund now.
Okay, on the miscellaneous expenses, we've got some items level funded. So I skipped down to the Fitchburg capital improvement. That's the capital cost we owe Fitchburg for John Fitch Highway. Next one is 33,000 estimated by Roger for the debt service that we will begin to pay, or not begin, but our next payment
Barb?
for
Barb?
debt service. Yeah.
Hold on, excuse me. If you go back, guys, and you're looking at the capital improvement for cost of Pittsburgh, that was on the front cover that we already talked about, the 20,091. That's what we were talking about at the beginning. So that number has already been recorded in the front of the proposal. Go ahead, Barb.
Okay, and the 33,000 is the Lemonster debt
Capital.
for which we have no offsetting revenue. So that was part of the reason that we did the rate increase, because that was starting in FY21. Okay.
Yep.
Lemonster, Fitchburg, Lemonster basically usage, we have at 400K. That was my first go based on projections. We had received 2 quarters and it was about 150, 160,000 for the first 2. And then the third quarter, I just get it for 95. So it's jumped 20,000. And that is because precipitation increased in that period. It was September to December. Anyway, I feel as if we should possibly put that up again. Rob and I were speaking of maybe estimating 125 a quarter, or thereabouts, or 120, just to be safe. As I said, the last invoice was 95,000, and it's all now based on flows. So it could go up higher than 120 or 125, but over a year, it shouldn't go up more than that. So
So you're
we would like
saying-
to maybe propose raising that to either 480,000 or 500,000.
Well, I would go to 5, but how's that gonna affect, you know what, why don't you put in, do us a favor, do 2 models, one at the 4, we'll just say 475.
480, so 120,000.
So why don't you show it to 480? So let's see what it looks like.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions on that?
Just to comment, and it might be a good check, Barb. I went back from your quarterly usage reports, and I took the last full fiscal year, which unfortunately was, I think, fiscal 20, in order to use a fiscal year. And I don't know what the rate is today for Fitchburg. Is it around $5?
Yeah, 515 maybe.
Oh, 515, a little more. At $5, that fiscal year came out to be, would have been, with direct billing, would have been 450. So I think you have a more current fiscal year. You might do a similar Sandy check. It takes 2 minutes, but I think you're right. I think 450 to 500 is probably where we're safer. Mr. Chair, I know Barb has to go, but one thing that we should keep in mind too, though, we always have a fall town meeting. If we find that we're running a little, too lean or whatever, or Rob sees some other projects that, really want to get ahead of, we can go back at special town meeting and get additional transfers from retained earnings.
Well,
I
that's
support
why, we're getting paid to hopefully do this right now. But you're correct, we can go back, but I want to make sure that this commission is all on board in what we're doing with our money now, because now it's business as it's business time now. And every year, we always seem to be behind the 8 ball. So I like the way this is going on this kind of form. But other forms are going to be available for you, so that they're not going to be lost. But let's just finish the last 3 categories there, Bob.
All right. I have Fitchburg usage at 185. We budgeted 171 last year. We're up to 97.4 with 7. So it's more than half a year. So I think we're okay with 185. I think it's I think if anything, it would be 180 based on that 97 current amount. So I think 185 is a safe number.
Okay.
Lemonster connection fees, I have at 5,000. We just paid them 6,000 on for some connections, and have some more in FY21 to pay. But again, I had reduced the number of connections down just because it seemed that things were slowing down.
Okay.
But we shall see. 2,000 for Fitchburg is just one connection. And then recordings and mileage. Recording stayed the same. That's just if we have to record a lien. And then mileage has gone down because of just much less travel with COVID, and if we continue with Zoom meetings. So that's that.
Okay, so at the bottom, do we want to talk about the indirect costs, 74,000?
Yeah, and that's a number from Karen. I included that tab in everybody's budget sheet. That not so much adjustable. The only thing that may change, they're waiting on the health insurance. So it may go up, it may go down if we're lucky, but that number is from Karen, and it's the town determined number.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on that part of it? I see none. The bottom line here, guys, you see the green column at the bottom where it says sewer betterment fund. We're not going to talk about that tonight because those numbers are virtually what we talked about. But I want to see them change. So when you go back and redo the numbers that we talked about tonight, hopefully Tuesday night, that's all going to calculate out. So in the meantime, read this. If you have any questions, please feel free to mail them to Barbara at barbara@I-have-a-question.com. She'll be glad to answer. If not, you can send it to Rob, what the hell am I doing here, .com, and he can answer your questions as well. Anybody have any questions on the budget? John, do you find this easier than what we've been doing in the past?
Yeah, I think so. I've been flipping the pages of the older format as we've gone through this, but yes, it's easy.
Well, we basically did our presentation for the town tonight by doing it this way. So that I thank you all for. And right now, Bob, what's our projected surplus that's going into retained earnings for 2021? Is that correct? 30,000?
I had 22,000, but I don't know. That took out the 6,000 in revenues. We bumped up the capital, but that was, so it'll be with the 100,000 increase, that'll jump up.
It will, but right now,
But it's coming from retained earnings.
and the last thing I want to throw out there for you guys to think about for our next meeting is that I like to put a circuit breaker in somewhere along the way in this corporation. And that would be an automatic, and we can talk about it, but I'd like to see a 2% increase every 2 years, automatic. So there's no discussion from the board. It's automatically going to be done to keep up with the rates. The rates up here has been changed twice over the last, hold on, Barb, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks you guys.
And you're sending me,
Nice, Bob.
I'm gonna try.
Nice job, Barb.
Thank you, Barb.
All righty, we'll see you soon.
Night, Barb.
See you next week.
so I'd like to take a look at going into our next budget category as far as throwing in that circuit breaker. So that's it. There's an increase going. I don't like giving double digit increases. But you know, between Fitchburg and Leominster, the rates keep going up. So we're gonna do everything possible to keep our rates low for our customers, and that starts tonight. So I want you to think about the circuit breaker and putting it in as a protection for the business, because the business, the board is always gonna change, but the business is always gonna be here. So we gotta keep it vibrant and growing for the people who are working in the system. And again, any comments on that? Think about it, but I would like to put that in and make it effective for a rate increase of next year of 2 to 3%, whatever we look at from the budgets. Rob, do you have any comments on that?
I guess I have mixed feelings on that. I think it's a great idea. I mean, it allows the users to understand, that with everything, the cost of doing business and the cost of providing a service goes up. As a property owner myself, I guess I'd, like that. I'd rather be able to do a slightly larger increase every 4 or 5 years, but either way, you have to, in the end, you have to pay, and you're going to get mixed feelings from everybody. Some will prefer to do it this way, some won't. That's a tough one. I mean, it certainly makes forecasting and looking at the big picture easier when your revenues will go up and you can use that to your advantage. So and at the same time, we may be able to do a better job of doing a forecast and having a long-term kind of picture that takes into account our revenues, our debt, our expenses and projects we want to do, and maybe from that respect, be planning a little better. So I guess in those terms, that's something I'd like to do moving forward. Knowing there's a 2% increase every year or every other year certainly helps that.
We can always design it to put it in so that a board doesn't sit there and dwell on it, but the board could have a right to override it as well. So a board could say 2 years from now, you know what, the breaker is effect. Let's not do it this year. But on the other hand, you got to look at long range forecasts, anywhere from 5 to 10 years, and you can't do business tomorrow and what you're doing today, and it has to always be moving, and that's what we're doing starting tonight. So,
Look, it's someone. Oh, sorry, Dave.
Go ahead, John.
As someone who sits on both sides of this, being a commissioner and a ratepayer, I'm comfortable with the 2% increase on a regular basis. As I said earlier, and I think everyone agrees, our system is beginning to get older, and I think it'll just help the planning process.
Well, keep in mind, Fitchburg and Leominster charges every year. There's an increase, I think, every year from Fitchburg and Leominster. So
Right.
we just alone, we have to keep up with that. So
Right.
we spend our money wisely is a good thing. And
I don't know what the magic number is, but I think it's something we should consider.
we have to look at the budget. I don't know. It could be 3%, it could be 5%, but it's definitely should be something, is what I'm trying to say. And you being a ratepayer, I don't like sitting there saying, we got to raise our rates 10% this year. And that's, we're not thinking as a group. This year, guys, we thought as a group, and I thank you all for that. And that's why we had some good numbers, but it was a tough year, and hopefully next year will be a lot better. And we have some good people, so which will be talked about at the town presentation on March 11th. So if you're around on March 11th, plan on coming to a meeting if you like. So with that, I want to go to any public comment, and I see no public in the audience. So how about any public comment from the board? Mike? Yeah, you're
No, I don't have any public comment, Dave.
I tell you, we're gonna move you, Carl, you've been moved up.
Nope.
Mr. Reynolds?
No, Mike needs to sign on later, because doesn't that determine where you are in the row of pictures?
But it keeps,
That's the trick.
yeah, probably. Brett, do you have any comment?
I do not, sir.
And none from me. I just want to thank you all for coming tonight. Our next meeting, the upcoming schedule will be February 9th. That will be at 5 p.m. And that will be done remotely. And the meeting after that will be February 23rd, unless something comes up. Our next meeting, though, I think Bob has on the agenda for us to wrap up this budget and submit it. So if you guys have any questions at all, like I said, I was kidding at first, but let Barbara and Rob know so we can try to talk about it. But once that budget is final, it'll be final for us to go to press with it. So with that, I just want to say good night and a motion to adjourn. Mike.
Full motion.
Oh,
Second.
Okay. Mike? Okay.
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Brett?
Aye.
Rob, thank you very much for your input tonight. I appreciate it. I
All right. Good night, all. Be
Anytime.
safe.
Aye.
didn't get
Good
those
night.
Night, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.